Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you a 2 versus 2 on Mont Ormel, and in this one I'm going to be playing with the 1st Infantry, the new Big Red 1 division that has joined us in the First Blood DLC. Free LC, so if you guys haven't checked it out already, make sure you do if you own Steel Division. Both of the divisions that we're going to be seeing today on the Allied and Axis side are available to everyone. So yeah, now is a better time than any to get back into Steel Division. Right, anyway, on my team today I have Bets, and we are going to be playing against Haymaker and Valh, so all friends of mine, and we decided to sort of have an in-house 2v2 to really try out these new divisions and put them to the test. Now, we did have a game previously where myself and Bets were on the 1st SS Panzer, and we defeated Haymaker and Valh on the 1st Infantry. So now we decided to swap the divisions and see how we do. And yeah, we're sort of hoping to show off as many of the different units as possible, and maybe how they play as well. So my sort of thoughts on the 1st Infantry in general is that they are very reliant on their air force. And you'll see at the start I am starting with the P-38 Lightning. But in general, you probably want to save until you have maybe 2 or even 3 P-38s. And then you can really start like swarming them in the sky and doing a lot of damage against divisions that neglect their AA. Now, one thing I will say is that relying on P-38s is not the best thing to do in the world. But I think it's a viable strategy definitely in Phase A against divisions, again, who lack AA. Or significant AA, at least. Whereas in the later game, AA can rip to shreds P-38s, and you often find that AA alone will shoot them down. They also don't fare well in air engagements like dogfights, because they're just generally a lot weaker and therefore get pinned quicker and forced to fall back, and then they end up getting shot down. So they can get overwhelmed by the sort of higher veterancy enemy aircraft like Me-109 G6R6s and Fokker-Wulfs. So yeah, if you're going to play around them, make sure you have a lot of them. And that is something that is possible with the 1st Infantry because they have 100 points per minute in Phase A. So Phase A is when you want to do it. In Phase B, probably not so much, since your income is definitely mediocre in comparison to other divisions. But in Phase C it does pick up again, but that's when you're going to be starting to bring in a lot of M4s. So let's talk about some of the units that I've put down anyway at the start here. Mont Ormel was actually a really good map for us, myself and Bets, going into this game. The 1st Infantry just very good with their infantry. And we did set the lobby up to do random, and this is the one we got. But yeah, in terms of troops, assault team, these guys have M1 Garands, 30 cals, napalm. Then I've got the assault leader as well there. I've got a 6-pounder, or M1 gun, sorry, coming up with us. I've got an 81mm mortar, another assault team here. On the left side, that's going to be an assault breacher. The assault breacher are like the king at close range. They have smoke grenades for utility, allows them to get close to their opponents. And then they also have 3 HE grenades. So I just sort of put one in the middle here, which you'd probably think isn't the best place for them. But the idea being that they just sit there on return fire, and if sort of Haymaker and Valh wanted to get aggressive with their infantry and push across into these compounds, then they'd bump into these guys who are very deadly at close range with those HE grenades. Now they do come with 9 M1 Garands, but it doesn't present much HE. But if we go back to looking at these assault team, these guys have 8 M1 Garands and 2 BARs. And that just presents so much threat at the like 200 to 300 meter range, which can do a lot of damage. And then aside from that, they also have their smoke, which allows them to get close range to use as napalm. Now a good hit early on, my M1 gun internal fragments to 222, removing that as fire support option for Haymaker. Deployed pretty light on this far right side, just putting a couple of assault MGs in these buildings. That's just to prevent infantry from just running across and securing this area. I've also, of course, got this M1 gun that is kind of just waiting there to pick off any stray units that push up. Now over on this left side early on, Betts has opted for the double M4DD start. He is going to be hit pretty hard by the Focke-Wulf 190A8 and is forced to back off there, but I'm going to be bringing in my P38 Lightning in to engage that. Now what I want to do here is allow the P38 to engage the Focke-Wulf 190. Then I'm going to bring in a second one which can then help the first P38 with that engagement. So P38 takes a lot of damage. You can see, like what I was talking about earlier, the 2-star planes do definitely affect the morale of aircraft quite quickly. So a double team should work out in my favour in the end as long as I micro it correctly. But just to make sure, on the next tick I bring in a third one. This is my P38 Lightning with the rockets. And now I've definitely got this Focke-Wulf 190A8 in a bad position. Now the beauty of the P38s is they're 125 points apiece, and with 100 income per minute, it's not actually too expensive. This P38 Lightning is going to get on the back of the Focke-Wulf 190A8 there, and that goes down. Big blow to Valh early on, especially since it's the only fighter he can get at the start. Now also, Betts' M4s are free to push up without being strafed. Meanwhile, over in the forest here, my assault leader moves out to the side and kills off the Flampanzer. And one thing that's awesome about these assault leaders is they have 2 bazookas. So they actually have 12 ammunition on those bazookas, which makes them extremely useful for supporting these assault teams as your AT infantry. So that's kind of what I'm relying on them there for. Now you can get the bazooka teams in the AT tab, but the reason I actually don't opt for them in my division is quite simply because they don't have very good stealth, and that's something that's quite unfortunate compared to like your Ranger Marauders or something that might also have a decent amount of AT with very good stealth. Now, you don't get Ranger Marauders in this division, but that's just an example that I was making. Now I did bring in the A20C as well. So now got 3 P38s on the board with an A20C. With Haymaker bringing in his Focke-Wulf, I do actually back off since all of my P38s were low on fuel. Now my mortar has been engaging Haymaker's mortar. Pretty light on the ground here. I'm just going to be reinforcing that. Of course, I've invested a ton in my Air Force, but thankfully Haymaker's not punishing me that too much for that. And meanwhile on this left side, Betts is making a lot of ground with these M4DDs. He's also going to be getting the jump onto these SS Volksdeutsche with his assault team here. And you can just see like how good these guys are. And with them coming in from both sides, these assault breachers with their 5HE as well. Going to find that surrender, closes the salient. Nice job by Betts there, puts us at the +1. So now I've got a 222 running down one of my assault MGs. I'm going to allow this M1 gun to make sure he gets on target, turn off return fire, gets a 1-shot kill, which was nice. Probably would have cleaned it up with two shots either way, but the 1-shot just makes it all the sweeter. That was very nice indeed. Now, as you can imagine, since we are all friends, these games can get quite competitive. But I think for this one we were all on TeamSpeak in the same sort of channel, so we're just sort of talking about what was happening, what was going on. And I believe that 1-shot kind of got to Haymaker a little bit. But either way, Volksdeutsche now going to be pushing on to my Assault MG. Assault MG is actually in a really good position here in the sense that it can just use its 30 cal to keep these guys at range. Now it's not ideal in the sense that both of these Volksdeutsche combined have 4 MG42s. Put down a lot of suppression. But with the assistance of my P38 here, I do manage to pin down and force one back. And I've got a M4DD now on the way, which should solidify this right side, which is actually generally quite lightly defended at the moment. Spread out nicely in this forest just in case I get hit by anything, but here comes the P-38 swarm once again, strafing those Volksdeutsche, stopping them from pushing up. Panzerjäger Stug 3 on the way from Haymaker now. I'm going to try and maybe get this M1 gun back up to get a shot onto that, but with the M4DD on the way, I was also hoping to rely on that as well. Now this, I believe, is assault breaches. They're trying to do the similar thing here as I was doing over here in this building. Just sat there on return fire so that if anything does get close enough, it will just eat a grenade to the face. I also bring in some assault breaches for the hill here, for if any of these Volksdeutsche get too close. But let's have a look at these assault teams now and how they do against two Volksdeutsche at close range. Unfortunately, Haymaker does kind of lack close range infantry on this division that he's playing, the 1st SS. It's one thing that they do lack early on. But thankfully in this case, he does support his assault team with the 251, which does well enough to clean up the assault team quite quickly. So I moved my assault team over a building just to stop the mortar fire, but yeah, that mortar fire actually cleans up the M1 gun in one hit there. P-38s though, they're not finished. They're going to be coming in with the strafing run onto the Stug. And yeah, just going to be making that fall back. And that's just the beauty of these P-38s. They do have a reasonable amount of HE that they can put down on the target. Here I'm just strafing this vehicle so that Haymaker's forced to unload his infantry early. It's a really annoying thing that you can do. And I think Bet's never really wanted me to mention it on a video. But during the sort of testing phases of these divisions, I did go up against him with this matchup, the 1st Infantry versus the 1st SS Panzer. And what ended up happening was, at the start of the game, I started with an A20C and both P-38s, and I had about 4 infantry units on the ground. And I just strafed his infantry as it was coming down the road. I found his convoy, just unloaded all of his infantry before it got to the front line, which was really amusing. In this case, Pioneer Führer, they're trying to push onto my assault team. I did manage to micro my assault team backwards, so I find the kill onto the Pioneer Führer there. And that's important just so that I can get future surrenders onto the Volksdeutsche that Haymaker is using. But yeah, focusing on like a air heavy start is something that I think will be quite amusing in 1v1s in the future, and I hope we kind of see it maybe in competitive play at some point. Anyway, M4DD has come in on this right side to just support against the SS Volksdeutsche. Assault MG still doing a good job, remaining alive. M4DD is looking to clean up the 232. Infantry is still king in this forest area. And this is what I was saying when I mentioned that Mont Ormel is a really good map for this division, in the sense that I can contest this very well, especially against the 1st SS that does struggle to have strong close range infantry in Phase A. Now you can get pioneers in Phase B, but their limited availability makes them something that you don't really want to rely on. Anyway, we're currently pushing this 57% territory. You can see Betts has made a ton of ground. The double M4DD doing him a lot of favours. And also, well, these assault teams as well. You can see they get their flamethrowers on target. Volksdeutsche are getting slammed by the P-38 there. And they are not having very much fun. Same deal here. Assault team cleans up some SS Volksdeutsche. So, 2 M4DDs now on the right side for myself. We are into Phase B. So I'm now going to immediately reinforce myself with as many M5 guns as I can. I'm aware that moving into Phase B, there is Panzer IIIs and Panthers even available for the 1st SS Panzer. So yeah, M5 gun definitely necessary. In this case, on the far right side, the Stug 3 is going to be able to engage my M4 and force it to fall back with the help of the Focke-Wulf 190. I do manage to get onto the back of it with my P-38, so what's going to happen here is I'm going to trade my M4 for this Focke-Wulf 190, which is actually a really good trade in this matchup, because again, limited sort of fighters on the side of the 1st SS unless he stacks them. Do lose my assault breaches there to ranged engagement, which is not ideal. M1 guns getting strafed by, or just mowed down by the MG42, but managing to keep that in cover. But assault team still king, running low on napalm, but does the job. P38 is just going to pin down the MG for now. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, M5 guns, they're very, very important in this division. One thing that you will lack is high AP as a 1st infantry, and the M5 guns are the only real thing that can give you that. So you'll find that in my division I have every single card of M5 guns that I can get, so that I have an overwhelming availability of them, which really prevents counter pushes into phase B and C. So the way that I see this sort of division playing is they can get a reasonable advantage early on, either playing around their aircraft early on or playing around their M4DDs. And you've seen it both cases. My P38's coming out on top there as Valh, I believe, he brought in both of those, meant to bring in a Focke-Wulf 190 as well. Ended up not bringing it in because he didn't believe my P38s were a threat. And then my P38 shot them both down. And that was unfortunate for Valh, but definitely picking on his air force for the entire game. Already killed his Focke-Wulf 190, killed off the two Ju-87s there. Now leaving them in a bit of a pickle when it comes to contesting my air force, which I certainly have a lot of, as you can see on the bottom left still. Now my assault team does get cleaned up in the forest. Assault MGs are going to be engaging the enemy MG here. But this M4DD still in a pretty nice spot here. Going to be able to engage a lot of this infantry out of line of sight of this Stug at the moment. And all the while my M5 guns are also providing HE fire support, which isn't really ideal. Should have probably turned off the HE here, but they just end up using up their ammunition anyway. Assault team, they're going to be engaged upon by the Pioneers. I do actually find them getting surrendered, since the Pioneers do a great job. And that's because my command died previously. Allowing the command to die there was another mistake that I made. But I'm still in a pretty healthy spot, with all of my air force still being alive and Haymaker not investing in anti-air. It's going to allow me to sort of continue to strafe his units on the ground here with all of these P38s that I have invested upon. And although it's not making me much ground, it's definitely preventing what I think is a stronger division from doing too much damage. But now you can see I've got 3 M5 guns on this right side. My M2A1 howitzer cleans up the Pak 40. I take out the Stug 3 on the right side. A couple of really good kills there. Puts Haymaker in a very, very awkward position. Now I'm also bringing in assault breaches, which are meant to match up against his Pioneers that he's now invested upon. They're going to be taking out the MG42. Also going to be finding line of sight onto the Guerrilla. The line of sight just good enough there. Guerrilla too close to the edge. Is going to get track wheel damage with the second shot. Haymaker's trying to get it out of there. Probably not going to do what he says since it's falling back. And the third shot does the job. So yeah, just solidifying the front line. Now I've moved into phase B, I do have access to a ton of rifles. And moving into phase C, I have even more available. Now, since the air force is so far in my favour, you can see I'm just using this A20C at the moment to spot as much as I can, see all the reinforcements coming my way. Do spot the Panzer IVs briefly. Got more infantry arriving in the forest here. And this forest was where I was just going to try and keep making ground, since my infantry was just so superior at close range to the SS Volksdeutsche for the most part. Now, of course, the Pioneers are a problem, but there is a limited amount of them, and if I can trade well with the assault breaches, it shouldn't be a problem. So, yeah, that my knowledge of both of these divisions coming in handy, and just sort of playing it to my advantage at the moment. The M1 gun still in a good position here. Didn't end up getting taken out by the MG. It's going to kill off the 251. M5 gun. It's going to be taking shots at this Volksdeutsche and taking that out. P38 Lightnings are back in the air, strafing all of these units. And that is going to constantly be the case throughout this entire game. Be prepared to see these P38s multiple times over. There's another one going in with the rockets. Another one following up with the strafing run. M5 gun does pick off the Stug 3. Another M5 gun picks off the 222. Really nice couple kills there again. Rifles getting up close and personal with the Pioneers. I'm going to allow this assault breacher to just use its last grenade. It dies in the face of the Pioneers, but the Pioneers do get killed in return. Going to allow the rifles to continue. Now at close range, this Panzer IV-J, less than ideal really for this engagement range. That's why I prefer the Panzer IV-H so much, because if you get stuck in a position like this, where you have a tree line, Panzer IV-H would be so much better for engaging something like an M4DD at close range. And one thing that Haymaker does manage to do is clean up my M5 gun on the right for now. Strafing runs, however, are going to prevent the SS Volksdeutsche from making too much ground, but with them getting low on fuel once again, it's time to get out of here. Pushing towards the 950 point mark now. I've decided to bring in some AA, since I want to just have something here that can maybe deal with a strong investment of an air force from Haymaker and Valh. They could maybe bring in both of their like second Focke-Wulf 190s together when my P38s are hanging about. And if that occurs, I'm going to need something to attack those that isn't my P38s. The Panzer IV-J comes through here. That's currently blocked line of sight by the M4. The M4 is behind the building. But the M5 gun does get a shot on target, which actually pins down the Panzer IV-J. And because it's right next to the rifles, I actually managed to find the surrender. The other Panzer IV-J getting picked off by this M5 gun that I move on top of this hill. It was originally on the kind of left side of this forest. I move it over to the right side. Managed to get a couple of significant shots there. All the while, these rifles are breaking through. Should have probably supported them with these rifles, but as those rocket strikes come in from Haymaker, I was kind of glad that I didn't, because otherwise I could have found myself with a lot of surrenders to the enemy there. So far, a pretty competitive matchup. Haymaker was so damn close to getting into this compound, but I managed to stop him there with a direct shot from the M2A1 howitzer. Now bringing in more infantry to just sort of hold the ground there. I've also got an M7 HMC on the way. And I'll tell you one thing that is fantastic about the 1st Infantry, and the big red one, is their artillery. Their artillery is superb. Where I might be sort of relying on P38s early on, in the late game sort of switching to an artillery doctrine with the rifles sort of leading the charge, and then sort of the artillery just softening up what you're charging towards. It's definitely something that can work out very well. Here just pinning the MG42, stopping that from doing any damage to Betz's 50 cal if I can. Now focusing on the 232, just going to try and keep that falling back so that my infantry can continue to make ground. Now, ideally what I probably should have done is let that 232 continue to come forwards, because then the assault leader here with the 2 bazookas could have probably killed it, but didn't really matter in the end. M5 gun does find a shot through the middle of the tree line there towards these half tracks. It's going to force Haymaker to unload these Panzergrens prematurely. You find that some SS Volksdeutsche did make it into this building for not very long, especially with the Bofors getting involved there And these rifles, they do have 2 BARs but each, so are able to engage at a relatively nice range. So I'm not really making much ground here, just in general. Most of our territory lead did end up coming from Betts for most of the game, because he made such a convincing push early on with his M4s. But I believe he has lost both of them now, and is relying quite a lot on his off-map. He's got the 4 GPAOP with 127mm rocket battery, and those are pretty cool. Pretty cool unit in a sense that it drops a bunch of rockets all at once, but isn't particularly good at pinning down enemy units. Now in this case, Haymaker a little bit over ambitious with his Focke-Wulf 190AA, and that's going to be the second one going down there to the P38 Lightning. Haymaker's also brought in his Ju-87, and since the Focke-Wulf has already died, going to be cleaning up that as well. Now Valh going to be bringing in his Focke-Wulf 190A8, and this is what I was talking about, in the sense that they both had their Phase B Focke-Wulf still available. Now one has been dealt with thanks to my AA, and that's exactly why I invested in it. Another beautiful thing about the 1st Infantry is they do have the ability to bring in both their M15 CGMCs with a Bofors all in one go. You can spend a little bit of, I think it's like 170 points for the CGMC and the Bofors. It's a little bit cheaper than buying them separately. And it just gives you a strong combination, which are both, in this case, able to engage at the 1,000 meter range and pin quite quickly, honestly. So LMfBfrEF firing away once again. Let me trying to hit this infantry compound. Now Haymaker's going to make a push into this one. Yes, sir. In general, you don't want to sort of nebble into the one you're running into, since you don't want to be running into flames. So it's a pretty nice idea to sort of try and pin down this compound to stop like MGs maybe from blocking your push. But doesn't take long really for the assault MG and assault breachers, and also my M2A1 howitzers to just stop those pushes in their tracks. MG also under fire now as well. Some more infantry arriving. Just a bunch of rifles once again. And I do have this nice salient through the forest. Obviously would like to find a +2. Kind of just waiting on my recon now. So in Phase C you do get access to a card of I think 6 scouts. They come in these M3 scouts. I think in Phase C the M3 scouts are actually really useful because they are a wheeled unit that is pretty good on road speed. You use them with your artillery effectively, you could probably find yourself some significant surrenders. And yeah, definitely something that I would recommend these scouts in Phase C. Now MG42 is pinning down my infantry in the open, so I'm going to try and get rid of those. P38 does a good job. MG on the left also goes down to Betts' 50 cal. And now we're really starting to make some ground with the scouts coming up. I'm going to start to be confident enough to push up with my M4DD and my other infantry. Volksdeutsche have arrived here. You saw a massive convoy of Haymaker's troops coming up. Now I'm just going to be looking to deal with those as quickly as possible. Thankfully scouts and the M3 scout there at close range going to be able to help pin the Volksdeutsche. I've also of course got the P38s just coming in with strike after strike. Strafing run after strafing run. Look at this swarm of P38s. Now if I can get the pin onto this Volksdeutsche, then that's going to be a double surrender there, which would be really, really nice. Do have an M5 gun on the main road here. That's going to be trying to cover off against the half tracks from making a push. And these M3 scouts on the right have also done well. Then come the strafing runs once again. And the double surrender like I mentioned. So pretty well done. So it was just interesting that Haymaker didn't really invest in much AA throughout this game. Kind of let me run amok with these P-38s. But it had gotten to the point, especially at this point in the game, where he needed to continue to invest in in his own infantry and other units to sort of counter my ground play. So that's why I didn't make a lot of ground on the ground early on, because I'd invested lots into the air. Haymaker continued to invest into his ground forces, and that's why he was able to sort of hold it back regardless. Anyway, VulcanHDGaming there, going to get forced to fall back. Rifles are going to try and run those down. I have brought up an M4A1 to sort of join my forces on the main road here. At close range, the M4A1 can do a lot of damage. One thing I can see is a Panther on the way. A20C going to be spotting that for me. But dealing with the Air Force of the 1st Infantry I think is going to be a pretty important thing to do. And it won't require much, honestly. On the side of the Axis, you could probably just bring in a couple of Flak 36s with the 37mm 1000 meter range. That should get the job done. Anyway, M4A1. Me running down these VulcanHDG. That's one thing that these M4A1s are very good for, is it's doing a lot of damage to infantry very quickly. But here comes the Panther D. These Panther Ds are only 200 points apiece. One thing that I didn't actually notice during the game, I was very surprised when Haymaker pointed it out. But this M4A1 just got such a good flanking position here to shoot down onto the forces that Haymaker had. I ended up killing both of his Vespers and the Opal Bliss munition, so really strong attack there. Now this M4DD is getting aggressive as well. Going to be looking for the kill onto the 257. Been cleaning up the SS VulcanHDG. You see the one on the mid here got taken out, and just a lot of ground being made here now. Also this M5 gun first shot, internal fragments the Panther D. And I've got the P-38 Lightning coming in with the rockets. It's going to pin the Panther in a very tough position between my assault leader, which is ready to hit it with its bazookas, and also the rifles behind, which can just surrender it. So I do get the crew knockout there due to the bazooka. The bazookas are going to fire again. So you don't end up hitting it the second time. So instead it's just going to be the surrender. And the Panther D is gone. This M4A1's done a ton of damage. On the right side here, M5 gun opens up onto the Panther D. And yeah, I'm left in a very good position. 2 more M4A1s joining me. You've got a lot of these available in Phase C if you want them. I believe you can get 2 cards of 6 of these M4A1s. You can definitely overwhelm your opponent at close range with them. Panther D does go down to my M5 gun on the right in the end. +2 is on the board, looking for a +3 with a 65% territory lead. So I'm just getting very aggressive here with the M4A1s, bringing up some more recon as well. Trying to break through late on here against this 1st SS. Finding myself a LMfBfrEF, going to be killing that off. Another, I think, LMfBfrEF out in the open down here, going to be hitting and trying to kill that off as well. Haymaker does bring in an 88, and that does manage to kill off one of my M4A1s. What's the best counter for an 88? 3 lightnings. And then after that, my M4A1s are pretty much free to push on through. Now Valh did time his Focke-Wulf 190 quite well here, in a sense that he was able to kill off one of my P-38s. But with my AA being a thing, I'm relatively okay with this engagement. Also, it's just in general a 2v1, so hoping to be able to clean this up eventually. The GMC getting involved a little bit there. But the 50 cal of the M4A1 going to finish things off, and this P38 gets on its tail. Job done. I'm pretty sure my P38s, for the most part, shot down almost all of Valh's and Haymaker's Air Force, which is pretty insane when you think about it. But anyway, M4A1's now being cleaned up a little bit by the Panzer IV-Js. Unfortunately, not really much I can do about that. That matchup's just pretty tough. Ideally, I want to allow the M4A1s to engage at closer range, so I'm just going to pull back the M4A1s for now. Over here, the Volksdeutsche are going to be hitting my M4DD, but only get the weapon jam. Didn't quite get the kill. M3 Scout does go down to the Panzer IV-J as well, coming in with the rocket strike there, just to sort of pin down and force back the Pak 40. P38 Lightning pins down that Pak 40 as well. So yeah, 2 minutes left on the clock. Pretty successful game, honestly. Mainly due to the fact that my P38s were allowed to run wild on this right side. And I don't think that's something that Haymaker's going to let me do again. It was definitely an interesting matchup between the new DLC divisions. So now just my rifle availability winning against his Volksdeutsche availability. A lot of forces just continuously coming down this road, but starting to get this M5 gun now into position. That's snuck all the way up through this tree line, eventually getting into this position whereby soon I'm going to be able to shoot down onto this road, which would be absolutely devastating for Haymaker. So I was really hoping that I'd be able to do that before the game ended. Yeah, my artillery has built up throughout this game. Originally relying on the mortar that I decided just not to reload in the end. And then these M2A1 howitzers, which do have 40 ammunition apiece, which allows you to use them for a considerable amount of time. Anyway, my M5 gun does finally decide to get involved. It's going to one-shot kill the Puma. Looks for the second shot onto the Panzer IV-J. Does get the track wheel destroy. Now looking for the kill there. Does find it. Two more significant forces the Haymaker wanted to use to push me back deleted, and getting the M5 gun into that position was just really nice. Well, this does lead me to, I guess, one last tip in this game. If you do ever find a salient, always try and get an AT gun into it, or some unit that you think is just going to be really awkward for your opponent to get rid of, because often when it comes to salients, people expect it to be like a light unit, or I guess they know what's gone into the salient, right? Whether it's like a Panzer 1 if you're playing like 9th Panzer and you've just gone and made a salient. They know what they're coming up against, but if you sneak like an AT gun into that location, you can really just do a lot of damage. For example, in this case, you know, I doubt Haymaker expected an M5 gun to be up on that hill shooting down onto him. And I just found myself a couple extra kills there towards the end of the game. And after 35 minutes and 11 seconds, that is job done. Myself and Betts defeat Haymaker and Valh. And I thought it was a very interesting showcase of the 1st Infantry and some of their strengths and weaknesses. I think the P38s can be countered quite easily by AA, so don't rely on them as much as I did, especially moving into the later phases. I think they're okay to rely on in the early phases, but over-investing it into those P38s can definitely cost you a game. Instead, moving into phase B and C, you probably want to start relying more on artillery and just generally playing around close range engagements with both your infantry and your tanks. You will suffer from a lack of tanks in phase B, so that's where you'll want to instead rely on M5 guns to sort of make up your main line. Those M5 guns, of course, being able to shoot both HE and AP. Sometimes that can be a bad thing, so turn off the HE when you need to. But in this case, look at the kills on the P38s. Focke-Wulf 190, Ju-87, Ju-87. This P38 took out the Focke-Wulf 190. This P38, another 2 Focke-Wulf 190s and Ju-87. And like I said, that's probably the majority of the opposing Air Force. Now this M5 gun and M4A1 at the end just cleaning up with those flanking attacks. But yeah, in this one, traded quite efficiently. Took me a while to make ground. Haymaker did a good job of holding me back. I think in general I just didn't really have too much that was fast to push with. And I guess you would probably have to rely a lot on your infantry in that case. But because your infantry is quite elite, it's generally not something you want to do. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. That's the first infantry. Don't want to confuse you guys too much with my ramblings towards the end of this one. But definitely a fun game, and always great to have an in-house with my buddies here, Bets, Haymaker and Valh. Well played to all of them. That's going to be all for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.